Dear Harstem, usually I think that the game is pretty balanced, since I know I'm not on high enough level to really complain about the balance. But as is the case sometimes, I feel like I was just crushed, and I have no idea what I've done wrong. I mean, sure, my build wasn't really optimal, neither my decision making, but was my composition as well, in parentheses, also probably since I have wanted to try Roach Hydra instead of my usual Ling binds. Though I feel like the Ghosts are just too well rounded, you can't really attack into Terran with Roaches if he does 3cc, since he can easily def with Banshee and fuel siege tanks without losing harass potential, cause medevacts with Marines and Banshees are good at this as well. You really need to start using periods. Yes, I know that I shouldn't have attacked with the Roaches and Ravagers into 3 siege tanks. Bad decision out of me losing 20 army supply for nothing. Though I have no idea how was I supposed to defend the last attack. I really respect you and I love what you're doing for this game. I know I am bad and I would like to improve, but sometimes I just can't see what I do wrong. Which is more of a reason why I am DMing you really than believing the game is imbalanced. But if I were to say what was the thing I have felt a bit overwhelmed by, were the Ghost. From both sides, since I am a random player most of the time. One hell of an essay over here. Name White Raven, but this season has a name change. Named himself Sigma Male. Now, for the people that don't live terminally online, a Sigma male is, I have an actual definition, a Sigma male is a slang term used in masculinist subcultures for a popular, successful, but highly independent and self-reliant man. And this honestly seems to be a moniker that is earned, you can't really claim it. So him calling himself Sigma male is not allowed. So instead what I did is I googled 4 characteristics of the average Sigma male, and that's 1, the Sigma male is adaptable, independent, successful, and above all is a non-conformist. And then it says behind this, he walks to the beat of his own drum. I googled this and I figured this out. So not only am I going to figure out in this game whether Terran is imbalanced, and specifically the Ghost, but we'll also figure out if you're allowed to keep playing under the name Sigma male, or if you claimed it unrightfully. So let's hop straight into it. Alright, in the bottom right we have Sigma Male, our 3.9k Diamond Zerg player on the European ladder. And top left here we will be seeing our blue Terran player, probably a similar MMR, otherwise they would not be matched up against one another. So we're going to be just, checking whether this player actually is a true Sigma male and whether Ghosts are overpowered, or if the reason that he lost is something else and maybe something to do with him sucking, perhaps, a little bit. We'll have to go and figure that out. So far, the openers are pretty standard. I'm a huge fan of that. I really just like it. There is something special. There's really something special about seeing people do proper openers. So I'm always happy when I just see a standard hatchery first and a standard barracks expand on the other side of the map. It just made me all, my tummy feel good. Like little butterflies in there, and I'm happy. And life is just a lot better when things are normal. I don't like things that are odd. Gas, pool as well, even rallying the correct drones. Our man Invoid Sigma Male so far is doing a fantastic job. Leaving the second Overlord at home, I would not mind if you just pop out with that second Overlord a little bit close by to check if there's any close by proxies. You can get back in time towards your little high ground as well. It allows you to at least spot one location with that Overlord and then respond in case of it being like some type of proxy 2 racks or even a proxy 3 racks, or in the worst case, a proxy 4 racks. Of course, these are all viable builds that Terran can do that are extremely powerful. So if you can scout against it, that would be fantastic. I think you pulled into gas a little bit too quick, but I'm going to forgive it. Usually you saturate your minerals first and then you start rallying into the gas. You don't straight away rally into gas and then pull one extra worker into it. That's what you do in ZVZ, not quite in ZVT. Everything else seems pretty much standard build order wise. SEV Scout coming out of the Terran as well, who's also opening up with a very solid 1 barracks expand. Forgets to build the Marine, might end up going into a fast reactor because of that. No, just gets a Marine a little bit later. That's completely fine. I am okay with it. First 2 links coming out, no third base yet. Now this is kind of odd that there's no drone at either of these bases. Usually you patrol a drone at this base, I would say. And you also are supposed to get 4 links rather than just 2. Despite Pride being a slightly larger map, it's still nice to have 4 links, or the Reaper's going to have a way too easy time. Now that you did not put a drone over here, you will not be capable of getting a hatchery down. And that is going to delay your build order. You already see you're floating 500 minerals, and now you start up the hatchery. This is the type of play that is relatively naive, I think. This really should never work, and it shouldn't, and it also doesn't. That also kind of makes me happy. If you make a bad decision and you get punished for it, yeah, that does make me happy generally. 310, your hatchery does eventually go down with some tricks, but it's not a very solid start. Reaper saw practically everything as well so far. Killed one Ling. You're getting your creep tumors out. So build order wise, somewhat okay, despite your third base being a little bit delayed, which is not brilliant. Getting your overlords out. I think this overlord might be a little bit too fast, the one that you're building right now, but it's not the biggest of deal. You're continuing to mine gas, which is surprising, especially because you already have your link speed done as well. So you got a very fast link speed, then you continue mining gas, which lowers your overall mineral income. And in the early game of any matchup, the longer you can delay your gas, the better it tends to be for your economy. And this is especially true for Zerg, because everything that creates economy is mineral based. Queens, hatcheries, nexus, probes, drones, SCVs, supply depots. Everything that would increase your economy that you require to build a better eco only costs minerals. Gas cuts into that. If you have 10 drones working in gas instead of working on minerals, you're going to get a slower fourth base, you're going to get a slower third base. Building more queens is going to be impossible. So for Zerg, very often you want to limit your gas income until the very last moment where it's going to be possible. You need that initial gas for the link speed, but then afterwards what you want to be doing is you don't want to get any gases yet, because it is not good, and it's going to lower your queen count, which when you're a Zerg player is honestly the most important thing. And perhaps this is where your Sigma maleness kind of comes into play, as you're a non-conformist. And you see everyone else building queens, you're like, no, I can do that better. I can just do it without queens. That does mean that you're struggling against Hellion harass though. There is a reason why people build queens, and it is to defend this type of pushes. If there was an armory with this and there would be like 4 cars, you would be completely dead. You're lucky that there's no armory and that you have 13 roaches on the way, but this is really bad. You also decided not to scout, because apparently that's what the cool kids do these days, not scouting. And as a result, you get caught completely off guard. You don't have queens to tank the hit for a little bit. You might actually end up losing your third base here, which would be kind of game ending in a way. But even if you don't end up losing this third base, this still wasn't the greatest start for you. I love this drop towards the main base. Terran realizing, hey, this is a roach defense. That means probably that my Hellions will be capable of doing something. I'd also like to kind of draw attention that despite you just building, 18 roaches, you're currently still floating 200 gas, which is completely useless. So you just wasted a lot of mineral income and instead are just floating gas for no real reason. You've lost 9 workers. Yeah, this is not a good trade for you. You lost a lot of mining time, you lost 9 workers, and you're continuing to build roaches. As a Zerg player, the thing you often want to be doing is when you defend something, is to immediately drone up, take another base, because you already have these units. You're going to be safe for the next legit minute and a half. That allows you to drone up to 84, 85 drones. Your opponent honestly just hasn't been macroing so well, and you could have had a massive advantage here, but instead you're continuing building roaches, you're morphing ravagers, you're not adding in any extra drones. Just now, after building I think an additional 7-8 roaches, you start building drones and increasing your economy, getting your hatchery. But these drones should already be mining. This hatchery should already be maybe 20 seconds faster, and that really does help. You move up this ramp, you see that there's 3 tanks. You allow every tank to shoot twice. You lose a bunch of units, and then you decide to go back. So despite the initial misjudgment, you do make the correct call and don't go back in again. I'm not quite sure why you would rebuild Ravagers at this point. There's no danger of being attacked soon, and you can't walk up this ramp again. Surely you must be aware of it at this point. I love that this Terran's macro isn't great, but he's making the correct moves, Just scouting around. I don't think this Terran is super fast. Yeah, it's not super fast, but actually is making correct calls. It's an interesting move. Oh no, I'm about to lose a Ravager to a Banshee. Let me just sacrifice my entire army into a position where I know there's 3 tanks. This is the type of high-level thinking that I'm sure the Sigma male community would like to have amongst them. Like, you just literally threw away the only lead you had. Because you didn't have an eco lead, because you built a lot of units. The one thing you did have going for you was the fact that you were completely safe. And that you were allowed to drone up till infinity and beyond, as Buzz Lightyear would say. However, instead of doing that, you decided to throw away your safety. And now you have no army and no eco, rather than just having no eco. Is the type of brilliant thinking that a conformist like me would never be capable of getting to. I still think you should be capable of making a defense. Not a huge fan of this Terran move out personally. Roaches make it really easy to defend this type of push usually, especially if there's not a big enough marine count and not enough tank count. Marines and tanks scale really well against roaches, but initially in like the 120 to the 150 supply range of Zerg, Roach Queen is extremely strong defensively, especially you mix in a couple of Ravagers for biles on the tanks. So despite this looking quite bad, I still think you're going to be holding. Now, of course, this game should actually be completely over already in favor of the Terran, but because he's not macroing, you still have a chance. And you're managing to barely hold on. This should have been, if you just would have stayed at home and he would have made this attack, and you had your 20 extra roaches, he never would have been capable of taking the third base either. So your idiocy of moving up the ramp actually allowed him to move across the map and take a third base. Now, him moving across the map did not do him too many favors. I have to admit, he lost his entire tank count, which is now non-existent. Did clear a little bit of creep and forced out a lot of units. But once again, you have pretty much map control. You can take your gases, you can drone up, you can take a fifth base, and with this Roach Hydra composition, the most important thing is to get into the hive quickly. You want to be able to reach Vipers if the tank count grows massively, and you want the lurker upgrades, because if you're playing a Roach Hydra composition, which by the way is not a standard composition whatsoever, it's not very often played anymore. There's some people that do it at the high level, but most players play either Ling Bane, Hydra Ling Bane, or some type of Ling Bane Muta. It's very Ling Bane focused. But yeah, if you want to play like this, it is absolutely vital that you rush into that hive, because your army is complete garbage without any of these hive upgrades. Without Vipers, without seismic spines on your lurkers, there's absolutely no shot that you're dealing any damage. They're building slightly too many Hydras here, I think. I still believe you could probably either be droning up a little bit more, or you want to rely more on your Roaches defensively. Roach is just a little bit stronger defensively, especially if you can morph them into Ravagers at delaying push out, making sure tanks can't get into good positions. And Hydras are quite expensive as well and don't really contribute much into a fight. The only real purpose they have is functioning as some type of anti-air. Now, this drop, I think you spotted it, but you just split your army ineffectively. So yeah, that's just a little bit unfortunate. Now, you're going to get cleaned up here, I think, because it's pure Hydra against Marine. No, might be able to clean it. Okay, that's nice at least. That is something. Still don't have an infestation pit, still don't have a lurker then. It's not necessarily bad that if you're playing like a very roach-based composition, rather than getting Hydras, is adding a couple of spores in like key locations. So like you spread some creep in the main, put a spore on the edge, put like a spore over here on the edge, one spore over here on the edge. That makes it more difficult for Terran players to do this type of dropping abuse, because you don't have, well, you don't have any queens. You have 2 queens right now. Both of them spreading creep as well, by the way. I love that. It's like larva injects. No, that's not for me. No. I just grind out those larvae naturally with the hatchery. I don't need injects. So unnatural. Don't want any of that. Okay, here comes the lurker then and the infestation pit at the same time. I think I mentioned it first at like the 8:30 mark, so this is about 2.5 minutes late. I do appreciate it that you end up building it, but usually the way that this matchup kind of flows, I kind of want to explain that in this specific scenario where you have a Roach Hydra composition, the way that it flows is that initially Zerg with a Roach opener might have a Roach 1/1 timing. So it kind of, you know, the Zerg is the aggressive one. If the Terran holds that, or if the Zerg thinks he can't attack into that, then sometimes afterwards Terran has a bit of a tank timing, which should hit by the timing you have hive. So you want your Vipers out most of the time against that type of timing. And then after you hold that timing and you have your lurker then with the seismic spines, the ball rolls back into the Zerg court. And that is the point where this specific composition that we're watching right now is the strongest. It's when the lurkers are out. It's usually when there's like 8-9 tanks, but there's no ghost yet. Because there's often a high lurker count, you can still attack into positions. Makes it really difficult for the Terran to defend because they don't have high orbital counts with a lot of scans, and they don't have ghosts yet. However, in this particular game, because your early and mid game have been complete garbage, we're in a situation where the opponent is producing 6 ghosts at a time, while you don't even have your hive started yet. He's like 2 entire steps ahead of you. Like, he isn't going to be doing it all. He did, I guess, some type of tank push earlier, lost all of his tanks. But you're never going to grab the map control at this point. So the situation is just complete garbage. In this type of game, what you want to be doing is you kind of want to be bunkering up, sitting back, and wait until you hopefully can get some momentum on the momentum back to you. You can get on the map again and start dealing some damage. The reason for that is that you need to wait to have a major advantage after a fight, maybe where he attacks into you, and then you can counterattack, maybe take out the base. You still will continuously need to play very careful because ghosts are out already. He is so far attack-wise ahead of you that it's just going to be difficult for you to fight. So attacking into this with ghost and tanks in position without seismic spines is a suicide mission. It really is a suicide mission, and I really would not recommend it, especially because you see what's going on. You see, well, I guess this is good because you get 2 tanks for free, but you know that there's ghosts there. I don't really think you can attack into this. I really don't think you can, not with these low range lurkers. Oh my god, this is just not good. No adaptive talents, no nothing. He's just moving out of range. He's gonna scan and then he's going to snipe one more time. If there was just like 1 extra tank here, you would be in so much trouble. But even without that tank being here, you're in so much trouble. You lost your entire, like, your cannon fodder that is really needed in front of the lurkers. Once again, especially if they don't have range. You still don't... Oh no, you do have a hive actually. This is a weird skin. Tricked me. I hope no one used this in a tournament because it really would trick me. Looks like a lair. It really does. Ugly skin. It's like the beak of one of these flying dinosaurs almost, no? Are they called? I'm not sure what the flying dinosaurs are called. I'm not gonna make any guess, or there will be some dinosaur expert making fun of me in the YouTube comments. You always have this one guy. This is the problem with having an audience of more than 5 people. There's always going to be some expert in the YouTube comments or in your Twitch chat that knows way more, and they're always calling you out as well. So they're one moment to shine. This guy's been studying the flying T-Rex dinosaur for the past 35 years of his life, and there I misspeak in a 45-minute rant. It's like a freaking essay about what type of idiot I am. I'm not falling for it. Flying dinosaur with the big beak. That's what I'm calling them. Yeah, adaptive talents here is the first upgrade. Not a huge fan of that. And I know what you guys are going to say. Well, I see Dark get the adaptive talents upgrade before the seismic spine a lot. Yes, and that is because Dark, most of the time when he wants to do something, is he wants to do some type of aggressive rotations. If you're wanting to be defensive, or if you're forced into being defensive, like our good friend Sigma Mill is over here, Seismic Spines obviously has way more advantages, especially because he's not in 6 or 7 base, so he doesn't even need to make any real defensive rotations. He's on 5 bases, which means that there's 2 sides that he really needs to defend. That's the left side, and you guessed it, the right side. I guess you have this middle as well, but you kind of automatically defend it if you have enough lurkers to spread that out. So Seismic Spines would have been way superior here, as we see the Terran just moving out with just a massive ghost force. At this point, I don't think you're completely dead. You look to be in a pretty bad spot. It's hard when you play this style to counterattack, because you'll be investing a significant portion of your army that's not very good at running away. It's not very speedy. So... yeah, you can't really, and it also can't really kill planetaries or workers very quickly, unlike Banelings, which is the unit that you usually use for this type of run-by. Ling Baneling, yeah, it's great. Lings can even pick up reinforcements fast, but you run in like 15 roaches here, it just ups the depot, snipes a couple of times, and nothing you can do. Just runs away with the SCVs, you can't really chase them. And I think this is an interesting setup, and this is the type of scenario... I was gonna say before you made that move that this is the type of scenario where you need to realize that your army is proper balls at this point, okay? You have an army consisting out of 10 lurkers. 10! Without seismic spines, and you're fighting a 14 ghost army. You don't even want to commit into this position in the first place, because if this Terran would snipe every single unit, you'll die. Here you say, okay, I don't want to fight pre-seismic spines. I'm going to be putting these workers away. I might drop 1 or 2 lurkers over here and leave the Vipers close by, so it's a little bit harder for him to continuously engage. But you got caught out of position. Give up this base. You're already expanding towards the top side. Pull away the workers. Don't even pretend like you want to hold this base. Because the moment you do that, you're going to lose everything. But rather than that, you cast a Blinding Cloud, which you then run into with your entire Roach army. And then, if that isn't enough yet, you decide to move into the Terran Concave with your non-range lurkers and end up losing every single lurker in this game. Every single one. There's none left. And you just lose. Also, you don't GG. After, in my opinion, a very well played game by this Terran. Sure, his macro wasn't too tight, but he made a lot of very good decisions. This guy knew how to drop as well, knew how to move his army, understood what was needed to kill this composition. You were like, hey, I'm not playing against Link Bane. Thanks, Ghost. This is exactly what I want. Fast extra expansions as well behind this. Look at that, extra orbitals. This guy knew very well what was going on and countered you perfectly. The least you could give him is a freaking good game here. But yeah, let's just talk a little bit about your main complaint, which was the Ghost here. I don't even really think the Ghost mattered too much. We saw like 4 or 5 snipes go down when you moved into this army. But even if this was an army consisting of 30 Marauders instead, so we replace every Ghost with a Marauder, you still would have lost moving into that concave. You just moved into the ultimate Terran concave, who was equal upgrades to you, and you didn't have your seismic spines. Like, I don't understand how you can blame the Ghost. And even before that already, it feels like the game is over because of your terrible early game decisions. You're completely skipping out Queens, literally the only S tier unit that Zerg has. Like, Queen is by far the best unit that they have. It allows you to continuously get economy while also getting defensive units because they don't cost larva. It's like this sick unit made by some Zerg genius, and you built 3 of them. There's points in the game where you have 2 Queens on 4 hatcheries. Like, this is incomprehensible to me. I understand that you're a non-conformist, but this is just plain stupid. This is like, rather than pooping in your toilet, pooping in your fridge, because everyone else already poops in their toilet. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and it's also very unsanitary. So, yeah, let's just start with the Sigma Millness. What did I have written down? I had adaptable, independent, successful, and a non-conformist. Now, adaptable, you weren't really adaptable at all. You did not realize in many situations, for example, that you didn't want adaptive talent here, that you wanted to go into hive faster, that you needed to camp rather than to attack. It feels like you have a setup plan in your head, and no matter what happens during the game, you're going to be following the plan, which can be quite good, but you're now hitting a level where there's actually other factors like, hey, my early game is crap. Okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more defensive, try to get back into a different way. So no, you're not adaptable whatsoever. We can cross that out. 2, independent. Well, you're asking me for advice in a freaking balanced complaint form. So no, you're not independent. You require my help. So on that also, a big fat red cross. 3, successful. Well, you just lost this game to a Terran that was continuously floating 3k minerals. So also, you're not successful. 4, non-conformist, and specifically walking to the beat of his own drum. And on that, I'll have to say, yes, you are a non-conformist and you walk to the beat of your own drum. Sadly, the beat of the drum sounds a little bit similar, like an idiotic 2-year-old that hits his fork on the table, screaming that he wants food. And although it is cute with a 2-year-old, your drum isn't cute anymore. It's a little bit pathetic. So, my good friend, despite you hitting 1 out of 4 characteristics, I'm gonna say that you're not a Sigma male. And I'm also going to say that the ghost is not in balance, but instead, my friend, that you do suck. So denied on both points. I'm sorry. That's going to be it for today. Thanks all so much for watching. I'm expecting a name change out of Sigma Mail, and I'm expecting you guys to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you all next week for another. I know also tomorrow I have another video. I'll just watch these videos every day on this channel. Link in the description. If you want to submit your own thing. Very cool. Thank you and bye-bye.